Greetings to all truth seekers. Today we are going to touch upon a topic that is literally right in front of our eyes every day, yet one we stubbornly refuse to see in its true light. We are talking about what are commonly called clouds. Since childhood, we have been conditioned to believe that white puffs in the sky are just condensed steam, harmless little water droplets floating in the air. But let me state this plainly and point blank. What you are used to calling clouds, in the conventional sense, does not exist. What we are seeing increasingly resembles a complex engineering structure, an artificial projection or camouflage, but certainly not a chaotic natural phenomenon. Cast your mind's eye upon the so-called mammatus clouds. This spectacle is capable of baffling any rational person. Imagine the sky suddenly turning into a heavy, oppressive ceiling, from which hang gigantic, perfectly defined cells or pouches. These structures look so unnatural that the brain's first reaction is denial. This is photoshopped. This can't be real. They seem dense and heavy, as if cast from plastic or concrete, and look nothing like the light mist that the wind is supposed to push around. They hang in clusters, maintaining a frightening symmetry, as if someone modeled them on a computer and forgot to add a realistic texture. Ordinary steam does not behave like this. Steam dissipates, changes shape, and flows. But here we see rigid, static forms, resembling honeycombs, or even the technical compartments of a giant celestial ship hidden behind a mirage. It looks like a blatant system failure, a rendering error in the simulation we might be living in. And this isn't just a rare type of cloud, as meteorologists try to convince us. This is direct proof that the sky above us is not endless space, but perhaps the lid of a giant terrarium. A logical question arises. If this isn't nature, then what is it? Who is creating these decorations and why? Are these clouds the byproduct of some atmospheric generators? Or are they cloaking fields hiding observers? We are used to taking scientists at their word, but when your own eyes see structures in the sky resembling egg-shaped capsules or industrial reservoirs, faith in school nature classes begins to melt away rapidly. We are being shown clearly that clouds do not exist. There is only technology that we cannot yet fully comprehend. Before we completely destroy your familiar picture of the world and move on to evidence that is truly unsettling, I urge you to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Algorithms often hide content like this, but the truth must be known by everyone. We are only just beginning our descent down the rabbit hole. After all, strange shapes are really just the beginning, a light warm-up for the mind. If frozen, unnatural figures in the sky can still be stretched to fit the whims of atmospheric pressure, then how do you explain the light? Have you ever noticed clouds that glow not with reflected sunlight, but shine from within, as if a powerful electric lamp were switched on inside a ball of cotton? And, even more incredibly, how do you explain objects that completely disregard the force of the wind? Imagine. A powerful air current is driving storm clouds across the sky. Everything is moving. Everything is changing. But one single cloud hangs in place, as if glued there, completely ignoring the laws of physics. Among the wide variety of celestial anomalies, there is one type that raises the sharpest questions even among the most hardened skeptics. We are talking about the so-called lenticular or lens-shaped formations. Official science offers us a boring explanation involving air currents flowing around mountain peaks and forming standing waves. However, if we throw away the textbooks and simply turn on our logic while observing these objects, the picture becomes completely different. These structures look so alien against the backdrop of the familiar sky that it is easier to accept them as poorly disguised technical objects than as quirks of moisture condensation. Their form is perfect, smooth, polished discs, often multi-layered, resembling a stack of plates or a classic flying saucer from mid-century sci-fi movies. Think about it. How often does nature create perfect geometric shapes? An ordinary cloud is chaotic, its edges are ragged, and it constantly changes its outline. A lenticular disk, however, hangs in the sky like a machined part. It has clear boundaries, a dense structure, and, most suspiciously, often possesses a strange glow. This isn't just the reflection of sunbeams at sunset, when the whole sky turns pink or orange. We are talking about cases where the object glows from the inside with its own cold or pulsating light. Such luminescence cannot be explained by the refraction of rays if the light source is inside the mass itself. It looks as if a powerful energy source, a running engine, or the lighting of internal compartments of a giant ship is hidden behind a dense veil of fog. The cloud here acts merely as a screen, a camouflage field hiding the object's true nature from curious eyes below. But the most damning argument against the natural origin of these disks is their behavior in motion. Picture the situation. A gale-force wind is blowing at high altitude. We see ordinary loose clouds rushing past at tremendous speed. They are being torn apart, twisted. They fly, obeying the air current. Trees on the ground are bending. Dust is rising in columns. The entire atmosphere is in motion. And in the middle of this chaos hangs it, the lenticular disk. It is absolutely motionless. It does not shift a single meter. Its edges do not blur, and its shape remains stable, as if it were made of concrete and welded to the firmament. What force is capable of holding a mass of water vapor in one spot when a hurricane is raging around it? Atmospheric physics claims that the wind should carry away everything that has the density of a cloud. If it is just steam, it should dissipate or fly away with the rest of the air masses. But this does not happen. The object demonstrates phenomenal stability, completely ignoring aerodynamics and wind force. This suggests that we are looking not at a meteorological phenomenon, but at a controlled gravitational effect. Only technology capable of compensating for external impact and holding a position despite a hurricane can explain such a picture. We are observing not the play of the wind, but the work of stabilization engines or force fields that hold a heavy apparatus at a given coordinate. It looks like parking. The ship took a position and engaged cloaking mode, creating a cloud cocoon around itself. Such behavior completely breaks the familiar view of the world. If an object can hang motionless when everything around it is going haywire, it means it possesses mass and inertia incomparable to the density of air, or it is controlled by an intelligence that intentionally holds it in place. We see shreds of real clouds flying past, creating a contrast that is impossible to ignore. It is as if you were standing in a turbulent river and the water flowed around you while wood chips and leaves were carried away by the current. You stand because you are a solid body with a footing. The lenticular cloud stands in the celestial stream in exactly the same way. It means it has a solid base or support invisible to us. But if the ability to hover in one spot, ignoring the laws of physics, seems like the height of technology to you, then what will you say about situations where celestial formations begin to behave even more intelligently and orderly? It is one thing to just hang there, and quite another to align into complex structures. After all, if they can resist the wind, it means they can also move of their own free will, creating geometry in the sky that makes you feel uneasy. How do you explain phenomena where clouds don't just hang, but form clear lines, corridors, and even spirals, as if someone is drawing with them across the firmament? If the previous examples with frozen disks could still be attributed to rare whims of atmospheric pressure, there are phenomena that literally scream of their artificial nature, breaking the fourth wall of our reality. Take a look at the phenomenon that meteorologists poetically call morning glory. This isn't just a cloud, it is a gigantic, perfectly even tube stretching from horizon to horizon. It looks like an endless rotating shaft rolling across the sky, like a rolling pin smoothing out invisible dough. Try to explain this from the point of view of the chaotic movement of air masses. Wind is turbulence, gusts, unpredictability. But here we see a structure that maintains a perfect cylindrical cross-section for hundreds of kilometers. It moves with frightening uniformity, rotating around its own axis, as if it is not a cluster of steam, but a giant mechanical roller or a transport tunnel laid by someone in the celestial heights. It looks like a glitch in the Matrix, as if someone forgot to turn off the landscape modeling tool in the graphics editor of our reality. Watching this moving shaft, it is hard to shake the thought that we are facing not a natural miracle, but a technical element of the dome we live under, or the trace of a colossal invisible mechanism at work. Even more egregious are cases that can be called celestial Photoshop. We are used to clouds having ragged, fluffy edges that gradually dissolve into the air. But what about those moments when the cloud cover cuts off in a perfectly straight line? Imagine the sky divided by a ruler. On one side, dense cloud cover, and on the other, crystal clear blue. The cut angle is a solid 90 degrees, as if someone took a giant eraser and simply wiped away part of the texture. In nature, there are no right angles or perfect dividing lines between mediums. Gas cannot simply stop in front of an invisible wall. It looks like a rendering error, where the video card failed to draw the next sector of the map, or like the boundary of a force field beyond which the decorations do not extend. The apogee of this absurdity is the symbols that periodically appear above our heads. We are not talking about accidental pareidolia, where we imagine a bunny or a horse in the outlines of a cloud. We are talking about complex, structured forms. DNA spirals, distinct crosses, perfect rings, and even detailed faces. How can the wind twist steam into a double helix? This requires deliberate action, a directed vortex flow controlled by intelligence. And the giant eyes that sometimes form in the breaks of the clouds look not like an accident, but like an element of surveillance. One gets the impression that we are in a giant terrarium, and the keepers of this laboratory, call them Zeus, operators, or higher intelligence, are simply amusing themselves. They draw absurd patterns in the sky, mocking our attempts to find a scientific explanation for it. Perhaps they are testing our attentiveness. Will we notice that the sky is fake? Or are these simply system bugs that no one is in a hurry to fix because the inhabitants of the aquarium will believe any fairy tale written in a textbook anyway? These Easter eggs in the sky serve as a reminder. What we see is a controlled environment. But if we assume that all this is technology, scenery, or projection, the most important, fundamental question arises. How does it work physically? If clouds are not just steam driven by the wind, but controlled structures, then our entire physics falls into the abyss. To hold such masses, to draw patterns with them, and to create giant tubes, completely different principles of matter interaction are needed. And here we approach the grandest deception upon which all modern meteorology rests. The answer to how this is possible lies in understanding that official science is brazenly and shamelessly lying to us about the very basis of life on Earth, the water cycle. From early childhood, literally from the first grade, a beautiful but completely unviable fairy tale known as the water cycle is put into our heads. They draw us diagrams with little arrows. The sun warms the ocean, the water evaporates, the steam, being warm and light, rises, gathers there into fluffy clouds, and then pours down as rain. Sounds logical, right? But one only has to turn on critical thinking for a second and compare this theory with real physical laws, and this entire house of cards crumbles to dust. Official science tries to convince us that water is capable of rising independently, against gravity, to a height of several kilometers, staying there in colossal volumes, and then selectively falling down. Let's break down this absurdity point by point. We are told, warm air rises. This is true. But to what limit? We all know perfectly well that as altitude increases, the temperature of the atmosphere drops rapidly. Already at an altitude of 2 or 3 kilometers, freezing temperatures prevail. Logically, rising steam, reaching the freezing point, should turn into ice, or condense, and immediately fall back down under the force of gravity. The thermal energy pushing it upward runs out very quickly. Yet, we are asked to believe that moisture continues its journey to an altitude of 5, 8, or even 10 kilometers, where the temperature drops to minus 50 degrees. What force pushes this heavy, cooled mass higher and higher? The laws of thermodynamics are clearly failing here, or they simply do not work the way we are told. Even more flagrant proof of the official theory's failure is the existence of hail. Think about it. Chunks of ice fall from the sky, sometimes weighing several kilograms. These aren't light snowflakes, these are heavy rocks. Scientists claim that these blocks are held in the air by updrafts. Are you serious? Try holding a brick in the air with a hairdryer. To hold an ice bomb weighing even half a kilogram, you need an updraft of such monstrous force that it would tear apart airplanes and demolish everything in its path. But we see a calm sky in which clouds stuffed with tons of ice hang peacefully, and they don't fall until a certain moment. Gravity, which presses us to the ground, for some reason makes an exception for these ice warehouses. This contradicts common sense. A heavy object must fall if it has no engine or support, and hail has neither. Therefore, whatever holds this mass up there has a nature far removed from natural air currents. If the evaporation theory is correct, let's look at industrial facilities. Boiler houses, power plants, and factories emit columns of hot steam and smoke into the atmosphere. The temperature there is enormous. The pressure is high. It would seem this is the ideal example of cloud creation. But what do we see in reality? Even the most powerful column of smoke rises 100, maybe 200 meters, after which it loses energy, cools down, and spreads along the horizon or dissipates. It does not rush 5 kilometers up to become a cumulus cloud. If a scorching discharge from a pipe cannot penetrate the atmosphere higher than a couple of 100 meters, then how does cool evaporation from the surface of a river do it? The difference in energy is colossal, and not in nature's favor. We are faced with the fact that atmospheric physics, as described in textbooks, does not withstand elementary verification by observation. Water is a heavy substance. A cubic meter of water weighs a ton. An average-sized cloud contains thousands of tons of water. To claim that these thousands of tons hang in the air simply due to temperature differences is to sign off on one's own naivety. Gravity is ruthless, and it cannot selectively switch off. Consequently, if water rises where smoke cannot, and hangs where it should fall like a stone, it means another force is acting. A mechanical, artificial force. If natural physics is incapable of lifting this water up and keeping it there, then the conclusion suggests itself. Someone or something is doing it forcibly. The process of delivering water to the heavens is not passive evaporation, but active resource extraction. And the most frightening part is that we have factual confirmation of this process, which completely overturns the idea of where rain comes from. If we stop viewing the sky as a canvas for natural landscapes and look at it as a giant industrial site, many inconsistencies instantly make sense. The most frightening and simultaneously mesmerizing proof of this theory lies in the so-called black holes of the atmosphere. We are used to thinking that lightning is a discharge striking from top to bottom, a punishment from heaven, or simply an electrical breakdown. But how then do we explain phenomena where giant electrical tendrils do not strike the Earth, but, on the contrary, extend out of it? There are anomalies where one can see energy flows and plasma being pulled into the epicenter of a dark vortex in the heavens. This is not an emission of energy, this is its absorption. We are observing the work of a gigantic vacuum cleaner, sucking matter and electricity into the bowels of a mechanism hidden behind the clouds. This leads us to a concept that can be tentatively called Zeus technologies. In ancient times, people saw chariots of gods in the sky, hurling thunder and lightning. Today, possessing a technical vocabulary, we can reinterpret these legends. What is hidden behind the dense curtain of artificial steam are colossal flying machines, giant celestial ships whose dimensions do not fit into our usual perception. These platforms perform specific tasks. They extract resources from the surface. Remember waterspouts and tornadoes that pass over bodies of water? Official science mumbles something about pressure differences. But in fact, we see a giant pump, a hose lowered from the heavens, sucking up thousands of tons of water with monstrous force. Along with the water, everything living gets into these tanks. This is exactly where those mysterious rains of frogs and fish come from, baffling biologists. Evaporation cannot lift a fish into the stratosphere, but a powerful industrial pump can, easily. After the water has been extracted, it likely goes through some processing cycle inside these Zeus apparatuses. Perhaps it is used to cool reactors, to generate hydrogen, or for other technical needs we can only guess at. And here begins the most interesting part, the discharge of waste material. What we call rain is in many cases not the result of condensation, but the banal dumping of ballast or technical water. Remember what a so-called point downpour looks like. You walk down a dry street, the sun is shining, and suddenly in front of you, literally 10 meters away, water comes crashing down like a wall. This is not a frontal rain that covers the entire city. This is a narrow, concentrated column of water coming from a single, often small and strange-looking cloud. It looks as if someone in the sky simply opened a tap or a sluice gate. The water falls vertically, in a powerful stream, and stops just as suddenly as soon as the reservoir is empty. No smoothness, no gradual buildup characteristic of natural processes. This is a mechanical action. Open the valve, drain the excess liquid, close the valve. Such local waterfalls completely destroy the theory of slow saturation of air with moisture and subsequent precipitation. If that were the case, rain would always have blurred boundaries. But we see clear geometry of falling water, which is possible only with a directed discharge from a limited volume. Thus, we come to a dismal but logical conclusion. Rain is often not a natural phenomenon, but a byproduct of the operation of high-tech assets hidden above our heads. We are being watered with wastewater, like garden beds in a greenhouse. And it is done strictly on schedule, or as storage tanks overflow. The realization that hovering above us is not just steam, but an armada of hidden objects carrying out resource extraction and dumping changes the entire perception of reality. The rumble of thunder becomes like the sound of engines, flashes of lightning like welding or the operation of power plants, and downpours like the emptying of cisterns. All this sounds like the script of a sci-fi movie or the ravings of a madman, but only for those who continue to blindly believe textbooks written half a century ago. For those who are ready to open their eyes and compare facts, the picture of the world becomes frighteningly clear. But it is precisely this clarity that allows us to move forward and ask the right questions. Summing up everything said above, we face an inevitable conclusion that may be frightening, but which can no longer be brushed aside. What we are used to calling clouds is not harmless water vapor drifting peacefully in the atmosphere. Before us is a complex masking system, a global projection, or, if you will, high-tech scenery hiding the true mechanisms of controlling our world. We see glitches in this matrix. Objects frozen in place, unnatural geometric shapes, cropped edges, and straight lines where there should be natural chaos. These are not just atmospheric phenomena. These are dead pixels in the celestial projection that give away the artificiality of the dome above our heads. I understand perfectly well what a stormy reaction these words will cause in a certain part of the audience. Right now, most likely, many adepts of official science will begin an uncontrolled combustion of emotions. Skeptics will foam at the mouth, proving that the author has lost his mind, that one should have studied physics better in elementary school, and that the water cycle is the ultimate truth, not subject to doubt. But let's be honest. Aggression is a protective reaction of the psyche to the destruction of a familiar worldview. It is much easier and calmer to believe what we were told in the first grade than to admit the thought that we have been deceived our entire conscious lives. The furious comments of those who consider themselves experts in science will not change the fact of what we see with our own eyes. Their textbooks cannot explain why tons of water hang in the air against gravity and clouds move against the wind. Blind faith in dogmas makes a person convenient for the system, but it turns off critical thinking. Those who wrote these textbooks counted on exactly this, that you would stop looking up and start simply repeating memorized formulas. But reality, given to us in sensations, says otherwise. Your school physics bursts at the seams when you see a giant celestial pipe rolling along the horizon, or rain turning on and off as if at the push of a button. Therefore, I do not ask you to take my word for it. Moreover, I insist, do not believe me. Do not believe TV presenters, do not believe authoritative scientists, and do not believe old books. In our time, no one can be trusted. The only criterion of truth is your own experience and your own eyes. I call you to an action that is available to everyone, but which only a few perform. Look up. Tear yourself away from smartphone screens. Go outside and simply observe the sky for at least half an hour. Not with a fleeting glance, but carefully, with the question, how does this work? And you will see what we talked about today. You will notice how clouds dissolve and appear out of nowhere in seconds, how they glow with strange light and take forms impossible for gas. You will witness the glitches in the operation of this giant terrarium yourself. Verify everything yourself. Become researchers, not consumers of information. The topic of clouds and celestial technologies is only the tip of the iceberg, only a small part of the grandiose lie that surrounds us. We have only just begun to scratch the surface of this mystery. If you also notice these oddities, if you feel that the scenery of our world is beginning to crumble, exposing a frightening but fascinating reality, do not be silent. Write your observations in the comments, share what you have seen. There are many of us, and together we can assemble the puzzle of truth. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next breakdowns, because the system doesn't like it when its secrets are revealed. We will continue to expose this world regardless of dogmas. Until next time, Seekers.